Here's some simple election math for you. Democrats gotta cheat, and they know it. I personally know 0 people who voted for Donald Trump in 2016 that are switching over and casting their vote for Democrats in 2020. I've done a number of informal polls from groups that I consider to be heterodox or centrist, and each time the answers came back not only of their own political shift, but more importantly, that of their friends and the people that they know. Very few are switching to vote blue, but tons of people either are or know many people that will be doing so, switching to camp red. By all means, drop a comment below as to your experience with this, with the people that you know intimately around you who told you that they're changing their preferences one way or the other. I think that we all would like to know your experience out there. So, on the presupposition that there are going to be a ton of walkaways that will be switching their vote for Donald Trump, and with the Democratic Party practically encouraging riots, Kamala Harris raising money via the Minnesota Freedom Fund for rioters to bail them out of Minneapolis prison and get them back out onto the streets where they can do their magic in terms of arson and looting, and Joe Biden's failure to condemn Antifa despite the continued and massive damage done by the group, and given the fact that Trump won in 2016 and has what is generally known as the incumbent advantage, the question is, why are the polls so heavily in favor of Joe Biden? The recent polls are showing Joe Biden with a 14-point lead, some of them. All of them, at least, are in his favor. It's incredibly hard to imagine that many people who are getting zero information from any sources, whether social media or the news, are going to outvote the ones who are tuned in. So here are the numbers for you. Facebook, Trump, 29 million. Biden, 2.7 million. GOP, 2.2 million. Democratic Party, 1.6 million. Followers on Twitter, Trump, 86 million. 86, yeah. Biden, 10 million. GOP, 2.5 million. DNC, 1.8 million. And now comparing some of the campaigns, walkaway, 487,000. 3 leading vote blue pages combined, 38,000. Look, it's difficult to compare mainstream media outlets, especially when so many people have moved to social media for information. However, it is worth pointing out that for several years, Fox News has bested CNN and MSNBC combined in viewership. One thing of great interest to note, the walkaway campaign jumped from 35,000 to nearly 500,000 between August and September. If that tells us anything, the walkaway page has 1/3 of the numbers of former Democrats than the longtime Democratic Party page has. These numbers fly in the face of every poll that we're hearing about. So what's the real story underneath the surface of the extremely biased and untruthful mainstream media? And why are the polls, once again, so in favor of Biden? So here are a few possibilities. The first one that I came up with is that people are intentionally giving pollsters false answers, which is brought about the fact that we live in an age where we are canceled or shot at for even wearing the color red, as if it was South Central in the 1980s. You can't really take issue with the pollsters if this is the case. Another possibility is that older voters who are slightly more likely to vote Republican have died off in the last 4 years and have been supplanted by new voters who are much more likely to vote Democrat. I don't necessarily believe that that would account for such a huge disparity in the polls, but it could certainly be an element of it. The third possibility is that the establishment is intentionally skewing the polls, and they want Donald Trump out of office no matter what. So their strategy, they are setting the table for Donald to win on election night. And then with a steady stream of mail-in ballots, something that Birx and Fauci have stated as being unnecessary because we have the ability to vote in person. Yet, of course, the Democrats push for this despite the fact that they actively encourage massive protests for the BLM movement. Effing hypocrites. Anyways, the media already has a term for it. They call it the red mirage. When states that initially went for Trump on election night magically flipped blue with the deluge of mail-in ballots. This is exactly why the Democrats insisted so heavily on the mail-in ballots. You're already seeing fraudulent activity taking place. Project Veritas did a whole expose of Ilhan Omar's campaign in Minneapolis, paying hard, cold cash for ballots and catching it on film. For the absentee ballots, excuse me. Absentee ballots must be requested, and yet they are still subject to fraud. Now just imagine all the graft and all the cheating that's going to take place during the election with millions of mail-in ballots that weren't requested and the United States being awash with them. These things will be sold, they will be forged, and it will undermine the integrity of our elections. Look, you can already see the fraud taking place. In Minneapolis, they're harvesting ballots in what is expected to be a very close race, paying, as I mentioned before, cold hard cash for them. In Paterson, New Jersey, the NAACP, hardly a right-leaning organization, asked for an election do-over because 3,000 ballots, or about 20% for that local election that came in, the mail-ins, were deemed fraudulent. People have been reported getting ballots sent to the wrong address, receiving ballots for people who don't live in their home. As many as 8 ballots sent to the households for 2 people who live there. And the Postal Workers Union, who has endorsed Joe Biden, will be the ones and collecting, returning the ballots. We've already found mail-in ballots on the side of the road or in a parking lot. Do you not think that this is going to happen yet again when the USPS workers go postal? And some states like Nevada and Pennsylvania had tried to reverse rules for signature verification. Why would they be removing such a restriction if their plan wasn't to cheat? Why? Why would they take away something that is going to protect the integrity of our election? They're cheating. Okay, let me give you another possible explanation. The simplest explanation, Occam's razor, is they plan on cheating. Also, they might be able to create a chaotic mess that will end the republic. So those who truly hate the United States as it currently exists, like Ilhan Omar of Minneapolis, aforementioned, will get her way. China will have dethroned the United States as the world's global superpower. Gee, I wonder whether or not they have a vested interest in this election and how much Chinese money is going into this effort. On the presupposition that the data that I provided about the social media pages ballooning for the walkaway movement, etc., if this data that I provided is correct, a true election would in all likelihood favor Donald Trump. I believe that people are tired of Democratic sponsorship of the riots, their inability to call them out, their overt racism. They are trying to gain power by destroying law and order. And this is why the Democrats feel that it is necessary to smear the president and to, of course, cheat. The dying Democratic establishment has gone all in on this election, throwing up a Trojan horse candidate in Joe Biden, and behind him, holding the reins, is DNC crony Kamala Harris, who will do or say anything for her own personal glory and to gain power. These people are willing to throw our republic to the wolves. One thing that I will say, it's my opinion that national elections of the past have been largely fair and honest. Why? Because the representatives of the parties on the ballots were not so far apart from one another in terms of the policies that they promised to enact. They were still beholden to the establishment. So why mess with the integrity of the system and cast it into doubt when no matter who wins, you still retain the reins of power? Trump managed somehow to break through that system. He's a free man, free to exercise his own ideas, and it's the establishment that is seeing its grip on power slowly slipping away. Quickly, actually. That's part of the reason they are working so diligently to remove him. It's why the media, or at least part of the reason, why the media is the nastiest it's ever been. Aside of the fact, granted, that there are many avenues vying for your attention, so they have to cater and keep a certain base. But let's make no mistake about it, there is an ample amount of evidence that the Democrats intend to cheat during this election, which will throw a republic into great and possibly, hopefully not, insurmountable chaos. They are all in. The Democratic Party, if they lose this election, will disintegrate, as the woke faction will splinter off, having had their candidate of choice, Bernie Sanders, screwed over once again by the DNC. And only the gravitational force of holding on to some form of power is keeping the party together at the current time. For the good of the nation, I hope that their plans end in abject failure. I've never been as worried about the health of our republic. I've never been as worried about the integrity of a U.S. election or the outcome. I've never seen so much animosity between citizens. I've never seen so many people derided for holding different views than the righteous left. I've never heard so many calls for physical harm of one another. I've never felt so much pain in the psyche of our nation as businesses are destroyed, as cries of racism ring out at every opportunity, as demands for fealty to a woke, anarchistic, communist movement are blared on megaphones at all hours of the night.
Wake up! Wake up, motherfucker, wake up! Wake up! Wake up, motherfucker, wake up!
I can only pray that America combat these villainous forces that wish to throw us into disarray. God bless. Vote red. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and thumb up this video. And most of all, go out there and exercise your freedom to vote. Peace out, everybody.